purchase for $44,291, and then our regular health insurance deductions for $317,104. Sarah Wood has reviewed this and asks the board's approval of the same.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the warrant, number 1921.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, then we have minutes of the open session from 3:26 and the 3:21 joint meeting with the FinCom.
Actually, we only have 326. I apologize for that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the March 26, 2019 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
I abstained because I was not present.
And Andy, your report and update.
Okay, a little update from the Middleton Stream Team. They're doing a townwide cleanup challenge during the month of April and inviting or challenging residents and groups to clean up areas of town, whether it's roadsides or open space areas or whatever. We always, at this time of year, we always find a lot of trash on the side of the road. It just accumulates over the course of the winter. We have a link on our homepage to the Stream Team's Facebook page, or you can go to their Facebook page if you're a follower of them, and they will be giving a recognition to the individual or family who picks up the most trash, and they'll be doing that at the Earth Day Festival on the 28th of April. So, we've talked a number of times about the failed culverts at North Liberty Street. Last week, our engineers, Gill Engineering, went to the Conservation Commission along with Paul Goodwin and got the approval from the Conservation Commission to replace the culverts there. There's three culverts. They're going to replace it with a single concrete box culvert. So this is just another step in the process. We're still on schedule to do the construction this summer when the water level is at its lowest. So.
Definitely not at its lowest now.
No. I wanted to give a shout out to the Historic Commission. They recently had some work done over at the Fuller Burying Ground on Old South Main Street. It's one of the small historic cemeteries in town. They brought somebody in to get that cleaned up, and now DPW is going to keep that maintained under their normal routine. So, really looks nice. It's a really neat little old cemetery. So. Yesterday, following the positive action at the special town meeting, I issued a request for proposals for the operation of the Middleton Golf Course, see if we can find somebody that will run the course for a couple of years, and also issued a request for qualifications for a firm to do the master development plan of the golf course. So those are both the RFP and the RFQ are available on the town website or by contacting me. The request for proposals for the golf course operation is due back on the 24th, and then the qualifications for design services are due back to us on the 30th. So, Brian, to your request earlier, we have set up a web page dedicated to the golf course and everything happening there. So people can click on that it's right on our homepage. We also have the master plan committee mission or charge on the website too. So we'll be sending that out by e-blast probably tomorrow. See if we can find people. We've got a number of people that have already reached out. So hopefully we can fill that pretty quickly and get them on board. And then still related to the golf course, next Tuesday we'll be doing Hilltop Advisors, our security advisors, will advertise the sale of notes for the golf course acquisition. So that's in the amount of $3,745,000. I think I talked to the board members individually or offline about this. Because we're trying to lease out the course to a profit-making entity, we are not able to do tax-exempt bonds on this. or tax exempt notes. So these will be taxable notes. It's a difference of about 1%, but this is only for the short term, so it would only be for probably 2 years. Could go a little bit longer than that, but the permanent financing will still be tax exempt.
Do we have a estimation on what that cost would be over that period of time?
I think it's about 180,000 per year that we were estimating that it would, the debt service would be. That was on the basis of, I think, a 3.5%. So this would go up to 4.5%. I'd have to look at the, I'd have to look at that. I don't want to give an answer off the top of my head.
Understood.
So, if the higher cost of the bond, of the bands, is not offset by revenue from leasing it out, and we're just saving the, the mowing costs, is it worth doing the thing? Because, the mowing costs are less than the higher interest.
Well, the mowing cost, we figure, is probably somewhere in the order of $25,000 a year.
1% of 3.7 is 37.
Yeah. We always have the option to cancel the request for proposals.
We also have the option to do a best and final offer as well if we get proposals.
Yeah. And we can, worst-case scenario, I suppose, would be, we could always just do it for 1 year if we didn't want to do it. And then when we roll the band next year, roll the notes next year, do them tax exempt at that time. I'd recommend going forward, seeing if there's interest.
Well, we'll know by the 24th
Yeah.
what the interest looks like.
But, the
The ban will already have
been placed, so
by then.
we can't delay the ban, placing the ban. So
It's
given
already
the-
been advertised, and if we delay, then we run the risk of delaying the closing.
Okay.
That's all I've got for updates tonight.
Okay.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, we'll move to our first agenda item, which is the renewal of 2 seasonal all alcohol restaurant license, 2 common victualler license, and 2 entertainment licenses for SD Management Group LLC at the Members Lounge and Halfway House Snack Bar at 8 to 10 Village Road, Ronald Rice, manager.
I would make such a motion.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, our next agenda item, we will skip since it's not ready for action, and go to the 4th agenda item, which is another extension for the purchase of the golf course. The delay is just getting the documents right with, the way that, the seller and their attorney want, so that they can take advantage of deduction, given that they're selling it to us for a less than appraised value.
Make a motion to extend the purchase and sales agreement and sign the 4th extension.
Second?
Actually, just for the record, it's the 5th.
5th
Yeah,
extension.
error on
Modify my
the,
motion.
error on the agenda.
I'd modify my second. I was.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. And discussion and follow-up on the March 19th special town meeting. Is there anything that you didn't cover in your?
There is not.
Okay.
So that was easy.
All right.
Other than you've issued an RFQ on the,
Yeah, so we've issued the RFQ for the master development plan and the RFP for the golf course operation, and posted the mission of the committee.
when would you expect action post approval of that contract for the master designer effort? When do you think that effort would actually kick off?
I would hope that it would start sometime in May. Since we're getting proposals or qualifications back on the 30th, it's going to take us a little bit of time to go through that. Hopefully, we'll have the committee, but we may not have the committee in place at that point.
Okay.
And, then there'll be some back and forth. We have to negotiate the fee. And then execute, and it's a board contract, so it would be executed around the board's schedule.
Okay.
I think if we're moving forward by the end of May, we're in good shape.
When do you expect to have a recommendation on what that planning committee will look like?
I'd like to say 2 weeks from tonight. That may be a little optimistic, but
I just want to make sure that we have some time to promote it, receive input
Right.
from those that are interested, and then make an appointment. Not that I think a ton of work will be happening once the award is made to the designer selection committee, but
And, as long as we have it, in place by the end of May, I think, it's hard to, to say, ask Andy when we know what it looks like, when we don't know when people are going to respond or who's going to respond. But if we have, by the end of May, a committee, up and running, I don't think there'll be any delays or anything like that, because the actual designer won't be, really getting moving until toward the end of May, so.
yeah. So the last committee that we had for the facilities study 3 years ago, they were part of the selection process of the consultant. And so it would be good to have that again, since they'll be working with that consultant. So the board meets again on the 23rd and then on May 7th, which is only a week after the proposals are due. So it may be that we can get the committee in place on the 7th.
I think I'd probably like to have a little bit more than 2 weeks for folks to express their interest in serving on the committee, because, there's a likelihood that, this will be just the planning committee. This is not going to be the future building committee that will.
Right. Yeah, this is not a 10 or 15-year commitment. It's more like a 6-month commitment.
Okay. Well, I don't want to hold up progress on getting a designer selected and on board, but.
No, but you're right. It's not worth putting a false deadline on things just to save a week now at the risk of, delays later on or something like that.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have an update on the operating and capital budgets.
So, not much to report. We pretty much finalized everything last Thursday with the joint committee with the joint meeting with the finance committee. I did send them some information last night. They met, and I think they wrapped up most of their work. The capital budget has been pretty well set for the last month or so. The total for the main capital article, which is Article 16, is $948,294. And that's been the same since the 21st of March. So it's been in place for a while. I guess that was only 3 weeks ago. It seems like it's been going on a lot longer than that. The Masco request is unchanged at $159,795, and then the transfers, the $50,000 each to stabilization, capital stabilization, sped stabilization, and the OPEB trust, for a total of $200,000. All those come out of free cash, and those are all well established. I did point out to the Finance Committee last night, a couple of items, or a number of items that are not shown in the capital plan because they appear elsewhere. Any of the CPA articles are not in the capital plan because they're appropriated under the CPA articles. The Chapter 90 is, we show it on our, I should say, capital budget rather than capital plan. The CPA articles, the CPA appropriations are shown in the CPA article, not in the capital budget article. Chapter 90 is shown for informational purposes on the capital plan, but not in the capital budget article. It's in its own article. And then there were 2 DPW grant projects, $172,000 for Liberty and Maple, and $500,000 for North Liberty. Those are shown on the capital plan, but not in the capital budget because there's no appropriation needed for that. But we'll also include the capital budget, the capital plan, and the capital budget in the warrant book this year, so people can see everything with a little bit more detail of what's being appropriated. Sarah Wood is finalizing the operating budget documents, and she'll send that out to the Finance Committee, and we're compiling the warrant book. This week, we'll probably go out, and it's sort of penciled in for late this week. It'll probably be early next week when we go out to print for the warrant, and then delivered to, well, the entire town meeting warrant, including the budget, delivered to people around the 27th of April. But now I'm getting into the next agenda item.
All right, so any questions on either the operating or capital budgets?
Nope.
Okay, so let's review the annual town meeting warrant.
So not much, really nothing has changed of substance since last week. We did put in we put in the Masco article as I had put in front of the board last week in draft form. And then we added the animal control bylaw. We're still waiting for some finalized language from council on Article 21. So that might change. The substance of it won't change. Really what that is to Chapter 21D, or Section 21D, is the ticketing statute, the non-criminal disposition statute that allows various enforcement officers to write tickets rather than write a citation that then has to get taken to the clerk magistrate. This is a much more streamlined process. It's better for us, and it's better for those who get tickets. They can get a hearing locally and not have to go to court. So council's working on language for us on that, and we'll get that finalized. I would ask that the board vote to sign the warrant tonight, and as usual, allow me to make minor edits consistent with council's feedback.
Okay, before, we get to that, I'd like to see if the board would want to take a position on Article 17, which is the Masco request. I know, Brian, you have some
Yeah, so I
particular
still have a significant concern on the stabilization fund. I don't think that should be funded through a direct warrant article to town meeting. I think that should be funded through Masco's E&D and other, that's how we fund our stabilization funds. Our stabilization funds are all being funded directly from free cash, which are coming back from excess funds that are available within our previous fiscal year. Secondly, I still have a concern with the money that was transferred from their E&D fund over to their stabilization fund within a short period of time of the 45-day deadline that Masco is required under statute to notify the board on, not that I think we would have taken action on that, but I think it's the process that should have been followed. And then lastly, I have zero problem with the $100,000 for woodshop safety and sidewalk and parking lot repairs that are being spread across the 3 communities. So for the case of Middleton, it would probably be about $30,000, $40,000, give or take. But I think the stabilization fund piece for me, I just have a problem with the way it's being funded. I know, Costa, you've stated that the E&D and others have been kept at a level because of cash flow issues. And I'd state that if Masco is having an issue with cash flow, that's a discussion that they should come and have with the 3 communities. I know there was another discussion that this is all about Masco's bonding capabilities. Let's be clear, Masco's bond rating is going to be based off the 3 towns. That's what it's based on, because we are the funder of that, of those bonding costs. So, I mean, that's my overall concern for this. I can't support Article 17 at this time, and I'm actually going to make a motion that this board, as proposed, oppose Article 17.
With, regard to cash flow issues, there are no, at 4% of operating budget in E&D, there are no cash flow issues. And Masco, receives funding from the 3 towns on a quarterly basis, whereas some other districts receive it on a monthly basis, and therefore they can, maintain their E&D at a much lower level, since they're getting, infusions of cash, on a more regular, basis. The difference between, Masco's E&D and the town's free cash is there are, for the town, there are different ways to raise, free cash. If, you sell a piece of property, if you do, different things, for Masco, the only, way is if there's, if you don't end up spending as much as you've budgeted. So, it's a more limited option, than the towns. And if something, happens, in to a town facility that, funding is needed, it's, you can call a special town meeting and, get access to funding. In Masco's case, that would mean that all 3 towns would have to agree to hold a special town meeting.
But within their existing stabilization fund and their E&D, they have significant reserves. And, what I heard was from different sources that they needed the $350,000 to come in, even though they took money out of the stabilization funds to pay for some things that were not funded by the 3 communities. That's first. Secondly, what I said was hearing clearly that Masco needed their stabilization fund to be increased. Haven't heard a word out of Masco about funding an OPEB fund or any of the other activities that this town is doing. I mean, to be honest with you, the $350,000, I'd also like to put money into our special education stabilization fund beyond the $50,000 that we're putting in this year. I'd like to put more into our capital stabilization fund beyond the $50,000, or the stabilization fund that we have overall, or even our OPEB, where we're finally making headway in whittling down the massive bill that this town's going to have to pay in the future, and future taxpayers are going to have to pay on unfunded pension liability, so, and post-employment benefits liability. So, again, back to the $350,000. There were dollars that were transferred over from E&D to the stabilization fund already this year, right before the end of the, last fiscal year, right before the end of the fiscal year, that if it wasn't already transferred over to stabilization, should have come back to the cities, to the 3 communities that are member communities. And I just don't understand why, if you're going to take out a stabilization after a decision was made by two of the three communities, and quite honestly, we were the community that agreed to fund that. Two of the other communities said no. It was still taken out of the table stabilization fund, and then dollars transferred over to E&D. I just, for me, I didn't like the clarity of it, and like I said, I have a concern with it. So again, I'll reiterate my motion that this board take a negative view on Article 17.
Is there anyone else?
No, I tend to agree with Brian. It just seems, if there was something to be, something that wasn't used, then, I'm just a little bit miffed by the way it appears like that. I'd second the motion.
Well, just, keep in mind that, yes, last May, Middleton supported, a, capital request from Masco. It was not acted on by the other two towns, so the money wasn't appropriated.
Right.
But the need didn't go away.
Most of that need was expended already. I mean, the items that wasn't funded, that were not funded, were still funded.
The wood shop is one of those items. It's coming, back. The roof, repairs was part of, last year's, and that ended up being, the bulk of the money that was transferred from E&D to stabilization at the end of the last fiscal year. So, it's, right, the roof still needed to be done.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing any of that. The fiscal year previous to that, or it might have been the one before there, that the three communities agreed to do warrant articles again where it would be unanimous, that if one town said no, it wouldn't occur. In that year, one of the three towns, again, not Middleton, said no. It was the town of Topsfield. And a lot of those dollars were going to go directly to signage at the school. The school said, understood, communities didn't fund it.
That was the article that passed.
So, but then it was
signage.
but there was a year also that items were not funded through a warrant article, that some of those items still got managed between the E&D and stabilization fund. So, again, I mean, I think I made my point. I think Rick seconded it. Again, I don't have a problem and support the wood shop safety. I support the sidewalk and parking lot repairs. I don't at this time support the stabilization fund number, given that it looks like there is no longer a cash flow issue that I had thought I had heard between their existing E&D and stabilization, as well as there is not an issue of if the stabilization isn't increased by $350,000, there's going to be a negative effect on bonding rates, which again, those rates are going to be based more on our three towns than they are in Masconomet.
Yeah, they can't be.
And lastly, I just add, Masconomet is a very well-funded school district. It's not like other regional school districts in the area that don't have the bonding capability or the stabilization fund. I mean, there's regional school district that my wife works at, they don't even have a stabilization fund. Not even close.
So, in terms of, bonding, yes, the Masco's bonds can't be at a higher rate than the three towns, but they can be at a lower rate, if the internal management of the money is deemed not to be, in best practices by the bond rating agency. So
I would expect that they're in best practices. In addition, given that the fully funded E&D plus the stabilization fund at the value that it is now would likely all mean, based on the bonding rates of the three communities, would likely put Masco in a very favorable light for future bonding. I mean, I don't have a problem with revisiting this again in the future, but at this point, I can't support it.
okay. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second to not support Article 17. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So it's not recommended by a 3-2 vote. Right. Are there any other?
Is there an amendment coming? I saw a note that was sent to the board from the author of the
Oh, the petition article.
of the petition article, and I know it's a citizen's petition, so it's not going to be amendable. It's
Amendable on the floor.
It's amendable on the floor.
Right.
But I know that the Finance Committee had, or at least some members of the Finance Committee that are also serving on the Cable Advisory Committee had some concerns with the intent as written. And so I don't know if there's been any more discussion.
Yeah, I
on that.
received something today, and I apologize, I didn't bring it with me. It would add, I think, just one sentence to the end of the article that would sort of absolve us if there is a technical breakdown or if there's a staffing issue, and we're unable to record a particular meeting. So it'll be incorporated into the motion that is read on the floor. The article itself will stay the same.
And do we have a budget to fulfill Article 24 finalized yet?
Yes, it was 12,000?
No,
No, it went up to about
19,000.
Just under
change,
20.
Yeah.
I have it right here.
So we've incorporated that based on last Thursday's joint meeting.
And that includes both staff hours to record and populate and upload, as well as equipment?
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
And is that anticipated to be a big slug in year one, and years two will be less, or?
No, and in fact, if you don't mind sharing, Rick, if you've got
Yeah.
it there on hand, Brian, you can see it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $125 a meeting for staff time, including the meeting itself and the editing and uploading. And then we put money towards 2 sets of
Yeah, see,
camera.
About 12,000 in
Yep.
equipment.
And so, that would, we expect that to last at least several years.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it.
Right. Any other articles people want to talk about?
When will we have the final language on, from the animal control officer? And I know you were working with counsel on that.
Yeah, so I think the language that's in here now will stay. And council's working on the article, I think it's the article before that, with respect to Chapter 21D.
The delinquency,
Excuse me, it's a few before that.
21?
21. So I would, well, we'll have it before we go to print.
Okay.
That's why I asked for the board, and it's not a,
oh, yeah, too bad.
it's not a substantive change, because the intent doesn't change, it's just to make sure we have the language in the right format. I would expect that this week.
Okay.
So you're looking for a motion on this?
Yes, to sign and authorize us to make de minimis edits.
I would make that motion. To sign the annual town meeting warrant and allow Andy to make de minimis changes on his own accord without coming back before the board. De minimis, minimal, how about minimal changes?
They learned that in law school.
Yeah. Ipso facto, we just,
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So is that does it for the warrant discussion?
Yep.
Okay. So next is a vote to exempt Selectman Moreski from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20 pursuant to Chapter 268A, Section 20D.
Mr. Chairman, I vote that this board exempts Selectman Todd Moreski from the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 20 pursuant to Chapter 268A, Section 20D.
You actually move, you didn't vote.
I'm sorry, I am moving And then if somebody seconds it, we can vote. Thank you.
I will second it.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know these sections, what is the
So-
effect of this?
Yeah, so under the special municipal employee rule and law, which is found under Mass General, Chapter 268A, it allows an individual that is elected as a Board of Selectmen member in a community under 10,000 population can also serve in another role within the community.
Right. Can't be paid.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Drinks out of this.
Todd, I assume you're abstaining.
I'll abstain from that, correct. Thank you.
All right, then we have the same vote for Selectman Cassiotis.
Chairman, I move to exempt Selectman Richard Cassiotis on the provision of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20 pursuant to Chapter 268A, Section 20D. Same case in relating to Selectman Cassiotis as an elected member of the Board of Selectmen, but under the statute would also allow him to serve and be paid as a reserve police officer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And just so we're clear, in case anybody has any questions, there was some ambiguity after the election of both individuals due to the law of special municipal employee, that there was a belief that through some interaction that had happened, that just being in compliant with the law was enough, not that this board actually had to take an affirmative vote. So once we understood this, is why we've taken this affirmative vote now, in case anybody is wondering why it hasn't happened previously.
So, any new business? Okay. Then we will be adjourned.
I
Do we have
move
any
we
good-
adjourn.
We don't have an executive session?
No, we don't.
Second.